And like if you go around and you were to tell somebody, hold on, my blood sugar is 65, but I just ate 32 grams of carbohydrates and I'm still trending down. So I need to have about 3 glucose tabs and sit down for 10 minutes to see if my blood sugar is going to plane out before the rise comes. Everyone's going to look at you like you're a mad scientist. Like you're crazy, but if I were to sit with another type 1 and say that, they'll be like, bro, I got you.
Just right in my mind, I was just thinking of what I was doing in that same situation. Be like, nah, he needs 15 minutes. Let's give him an extra 5 minutes and then he'll get up. But then we got to start moving before the spike hits and we got to get ahead of the spike.
Like you're just on that wavelength. You're on that wavelength.
We have an exciting announcement about the future of T1 Determined. We are beyond thrilled to announce that we are partnering with Project Insulnation. Together, Project Insulnation and T1 Determined will be constructing T1D Backcountry Adventures. This includes overnight hiking, camping, expeditions, and trips across the country with hopes of growing to across the world. A Type 1 diabetes-specific community outreach and growth initiative. Welcome to the T1 Determined podcast, where we bridge the conversation of Type 1 diabetes and endurance. I'm Joseph Anthony Marcello, a runner, a weightlifter, a mountaineer, and athlete. As someone living with T1D, I'm on a mission to uncover and share science-backed information that drives optimal performance and longevity. And as a storyteller, I'm here to explore and share incredible feats in T1D sports physiology. Let's tackle this together. Today, I welcome back T1D ultra endurance athlete Chris Roome. Chris joined the podcast last year to talk about his 50-mile ultra accomplishment with T1D. Since then, he has run 2 of the Abbott World Major Marathons, Berlin and Chicago, and, as we will discuss, he has recently founded a Type 1 adventure company, Project Insulnation. This is our next adventure for Chris and I together, as T1 Determined will partner with Project Insulnation in curating Type 1 backcountry trips, expeditions, and more while capturing the content and stories of the T1D athletes joining us. We dive deep into the importance of surrounding yourself with a positive community and why adventure is so crucial to help with the mindset of managing T1D. I hope you find this conversation helpful as we explain the next chapters of both of our missions. As we build this podcast from the ground up, your support is crucial for our continued growth. Wherever you're listening, please share this episode and others with anyone you think might benefit. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and X at T1D_endurance, on Facebook at T1 Determined, and visit our website, t1determined.net. Before we dive in, I am not a medical doctor. The topics discussed and the recommendations shared by myself and our guests are personal experiences and not medical prescriptions. Always consult your healthcare team and medical professionals before making any changes to your daily routines, management, or therapies. And now, my conversation with Chris Roome of Project Insulnation.
All right, Chris, welcome. Thank you for once again coming on the T1 Determined podcast. You are actually the first guest to come on twice. So first off, I want to say thank you. Second off, I want to say how excited I am. For our listeners who aren't watching us right now, we are sitting next to each other. This is an in-person podcast episode, and we are actually in the Catskills. So do you want to start off by explaining a little what we're doing here and where we are at the moment?
Sure. So we are currently sitting on a rock ledge called Giant Ledge up in the Catskills. Me and Joe met up here today. It's kind of the halfway point to A, meet each other in person finally, and B, kind of get a little founder's story and some content of me and him in the element that we want to bring all of our Type 1 diabetics on with us. So we are here today. Some hiccups throughout the way, but we're making it work here.
Currently, we are recording on an iPhone. The camera got too cold.
A cracked iPhone.
The iPhone that we were recording on is cracked because we were filming some other angles and the tripod fell backwards right onto the screen. It's what, a 5-day-old iPhone?
Yeah.
So On top of that, we have what? A sense of failure.
Yeah, we're
Because
learning a whole bunch of things what not to do.
technology is
Yeah.
not going our way today. But I think it brings back to the point of how powerful the story is. No matter what, we're still getting what we can, and we're still focused on getting these stories of type 1 diabetics doing endurance feats, specifically out in the mountains. And we have a whole lot to get into today. Um, and we're going to talk about how the partnership with T1 Determined and Project Insulnation is going to work. We're going to dive into what that is because that's something new for our listeners. It's something new for us, something that we're definitely excited for. Before we dive into that, our focus today in conversation is about type 1 and community. Um, you've been on this podcast before, so if you want to just give a quick, maybe 1 minute recap of who you are as a person, and then last time what you were on the podcast for, and some of your athletic feats beyond that.
Sure. So my name is Chris Roome, the founder of Project Insulnation. As Joe alluded to, I've been on this podcast before. That's how I met Joe. He interviewed me after I ran a 50-mile trail race as a type 1 diabetic. It was a pretty cool episode because the race had highs, it had lows, and it had everything in between that I had to deal with on the go as a type 1. So since then, I've run a couple of the world major marathons. I ran Chicago and Berlin, Germany
Awesome.
in the fall of last year. We launched Project Insulnation, which we'll get more into here in a little bit. Me and my wife welcomed our 4th child back in November.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. So we now have 4 under 4. It's been fun, but I just I keep finding ways to challenge myself mentally, physically, and spiritually. And I don't let type 1 diabetes be the reason that I don't do anything. My general rule of thumb is if it's something I look at and it scares me, then I should automatically sign up and do it because I'm going to learn a lot about myself in the process of doing it.
We're talking about two things while on the trail. First is which, if you learn education's power, if you learn how to manage your type 1 to allow you to get to places like a trail or whatever that trail meaning is for you, you get to enjoy life beyond type 1. So it's kind of like if you really, really focus on your type 1, you get to enjoy the other aspects of life because there's so much more to life than type 1. And then the second part that we were talking about on the trail is how failure leads to learning, and how there is scientific data. I believe I was referencing studies by Carol Dweck, and I can find those studies to provide in the show note captions on direct failure leading to the brain adapting and forcing yourself to adapt to learn. So it's almost like you grow. Not that failure all the time is good, but you grow from trial and error. And I think just as type 1s, that's something that we innately do. That's something that I've come across since I've been diagnosed, probably before I've been diagnosed, even as like a filmmaker.
Yeah, 100%. And I hit the nail on the head. As a type 1, it's very easy to listen to your endocrinologist and your doctor's advice and never push the boundaries and never step out of that comfort zone. But the only way that you're going to learn how to manage your type 1 in a much more challenging, much more demanding situation or circumstance is to step out of that comfort zone and do it.
Mhm.
It's never going to go perfect on the first attempt. If it does, great, awesome. It's probably not going to happen a second time. But in those moments, you learn what works, you learn what doesn't work, and you walk away knowing what to try next time to make the whole process and the whole experience a little easier on the type 1 management.
I like how you say for the next time. So it's like each time you go out, you're building. You're building your knowledge base. You're learning about your routines and your discipline per you. So by the 20th time you go out for a hike, one, it could be a bigger hike, but two, you start knowing what to do to allow yourself to get to a bigger hike.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll reference my running as an example for the listeners here. When I started endurance running, I didn't really know how to handle the cutback on the basal rate. I didn't know fueling timing. I didn't know fueling quantity. There were a whole bunch of different things that I didn't really know going into running. So I just started running. I found out very quickly my regular profile didn't work. So then I started cutting back my basal ratios on temporary profiles until I was able to find one that gave me a semblance of stability. When I found that stability, then I knew I was able to start playing with fueling. And like I was telling Joe, it took me hundreds of training runs to dial in what I do on race day now or for long runs.
Mm.
But every single one of those runs where a low sugar stopped me from the run, a high sugar stopped me from the run. You know, sleep and stress the night before, I wasn't feeling right and I backed out of the run. None of those were failed runs. All of those were learning points where I learned, okay, if I have a bad night prior, then it's going to be harder to manage the sugars the day of. If I went out with a 75% basal profile and I was fighting lows the whole time, now the next time I know I need to run a 50% basal profile on the tests.
So
Fueling.
you started asking why these things
Yeah.
were happening.
Yep. And
Basically.
then just change one variable at a time. And I
Yeah.
was able to dial in the basal profile and then add the fueling on top of it. So now I have a very good baseline approach to my endurance runs where I give myself the highest probability of type 1 being manageable throughout the event based off of all of the trial and error I did in my training runs.
And on top of the trial and error, it's building it off of what went wrong, but also kind of what goes right too.
Yeah.
And then like what can be maximized is, if, for example, like if you eat a banana and you're just like a banana before a 10-mile run really works for me. So I know at mile 10 during my run, I need another banana, or is that certain amount of carbs or that type of carbs? Because I don't know for you, like a banana and a blueberry, of that same amount of carbs affect my blood sugar differently, even though they're both fruit, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. You start going into fast acting or complex carbs, and then you start going to dextrose and fructose and all the other kinds of sugars that get digested or broken down and absorbed different ways in different rates. So that is the other point too. You know, you test the foods, you understand what's in the foods, and you understand how your body's reacting to those foods.
We're crazy mathematicians,
Oh, here
huh?
we go.
Literally,
Yeah.
I think type 1s are mad scientists. What I mean, I think about this, and I think everything that you're saying is it's very empowering. It's very relatable. Everything that you're saying is stuff that I went through and that I hope our listeners have gone through or are going through. And to that point, why do you think type 1 specifically are so afraid to do it? Because I do see a lot. I see and I encounter, and it's not a bad thing to be afraid to go start. And you say essentially you want to start your running career by just doing it. So just do it by doing it. You know, it's as simple as that. But why do you think people are so afraid to start?
I think a lot of people out there haven't been encouraged or empowered to take that first step. You know,
Yeah.
they've been cautioned their whole life, and not that caution's a bad thing, but when caution's the only thing you know, caution's the only thing you know. You won't you won't take that step out of the comfort zone if you've only been wired to err on the side of caution. You know, you start to have these, well, I can't do that because XYZ, or
Yeah.
what if A, B, and C were to happen? How would I D, E, and F? You know, all these questions start circling around your head and they become limiting beliefs. And the longer you allow those limiting beliefs to control what you do and don't do in your life, the more you solidify them. So by just having people in your corner, people who have done it, who are willing to A, talk to you, or B, show you that it's possible, is a lot of the times that little subtle kick that somebody needs to actually go out and make that change in their life, whatever it may be.
I think it's so ironic that we have that fear to do something because of type 1 complications, but that stopping and being sedentary leads to type 1 complications.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And the complications and the fears of going out and doing those things are very real fears. They
Yeah.
don't just disappear because you take
No,
the
and
step.
sometimes they happen in the moment.
Yeah.
Like, you
Yep.
could make a mistake and you could go low on a hike, and that brings about, like, a traumatic fear that makes you never wanna do it again.
Yeah. And what it comes down to, I mean, for me, what it comes down to is just preparation. Like,
Yeah.
yes, we need to prepare more as type 1 diabetics, but if you prepare for all of these different scenarios, a lot of which you'll learn in the moment,
Mhm.
like don't use a flimsy tripod with your brand new iPhone.
Or there'll be a crack.
Yeah.
Or
But
you'll be filming a podcast on a cracked screen.
yeah. But the more that you prepare for events that could or generally bring the most fear to you, the more you're capable of handling them in the moment. And when you get those small victories, you start stacking them. The more you handle, the
Yeah.
more confident you get. The more confident you get, the more you push yourself. And the more you push yourself, the more reward you feel.
And it's important when you're pushing yourself to work with yourself to give yourself those victories.
Yes, yes. There's push yourself, but push yourself within reason because you can push yourself into bigger problems too. You know, you have to
Mhm.
make sure that you're mindful of your type 1 and be cognizant of how your body's reacting in certain situations. You know, it's much easier now with all the technology. You can check on your trends, the CGMs that we have and everything like that. You know, but always bring backups too. You know, I
Yeah.
alluded on the first podcast with Joe. I had my pump site got ripped out in a rainstorm at mile 30 of a 50-mile race, and I had to do the other 20 miles micro dosing myself MDI because I had learned on a training run that if my pump site falls out, I'm too sweaty to be able to put a new one in, that I need to take syringes and insulin to microdose. So, like, you will learn things in the moment, but there's a lot that you can plan for prior to so you have the answers in the moment.
And yeah, it's like overwhelming. And I think a lot of people think all of this is overwhelming, but a cool take on it is that you are a professional athlete. And like type 1 diabetes is your sport. Well, like
Yep.
what you're doing obviously is your sport, but type 1, your type 1 training, we can call it, is what's allowing you to do that sport. So it's like professional athletes have to hit the gym every day. Like the ones that are really great don't stop working on their craft. And you have to consider type 1 as part of that craft of the activity that you want to do. Does it suck that you have to do that? Yes. But does it mean that you shouldn't go out and do the activity you want to do? No, completely not.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. And a true master of his craft never stops learning.
Yeah.
You know, by putting yourself into situations that A, challenge you, and B, force you to do something outside of the normal, you're going to continue to grow. You know, I'm a big advocate of nobody knows you like you. You know, there's medical professionals out there who are awesome. They're great. They know what they need to know and they can relay a lot of stuff to you. But at the end of the day, they are not you. They do not understand fully everything that's going on in your body. That is what you, I want to use the word responsible, but I don't know if it's the right word to use, but
Yeah.
that's what you are
I think,
responsible.
yeah. No, I mean, I think to be honest, we'll get into the Project Insulnation mission later, but a lot of people know about the T1 Determined mission. And I really advocate for the fact that you have to be disciplined about this condition.
Mhm.
And it's just like, that's kind of like it is a reality slap. There's no change in the fact that we have it. And once we realize that, like, yeah, we have a responsibility that we take upon ourselves to live a healthy life with this, or as healthy as a vision of our lives that we want, because that's different for you and me. The A1C you want is different than the A1C I want. And that's totally okay. But we're both accomplishing our goal.
Yeah. Yep. And we continue to work for them. We
Yeah.
continue to learn. We continue to sharpen our tools or master our craft, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah. I think you talked a lot about how important it is to focus on oneself. And I think in general, it's extremely important. I can tell you my life changed when I started learning about science and how the human body works, from anatomy to the digestive system, to muscular endurance. And I started learning all about physiology, and that completely changed my life. So I think outside of type 1, everybody should be focusing on themselves, learning what they want to learn about, learn new stuff. I think as a type one, to learn stuff outside of the type one realm is important. Um, but I also think it's extremely important to be a type one with other type ones. This is a very self-driven, it's a very individualized condition. But my next big question to you is, how do you translate that into being in a type one community?
So the power of the type 1 community is it's something special, and it's really hard to put into words how it affects you, but it's almost like when you run into someone out somewhere who's wearing you see a Dexcom on them, or you see an insulin pump hanging off their belt, like, you're
Yeah.
automatically drawn to them. The type 1 community kind of just swallows you in and just takes hold of you. It's a whole bunch of people that you've never met who deal with the same stress, the same questions, the same fears, the same worries, the same roller coasters, the same decisions that you have to make. So these people understand you to a level that nobody else understands you automatically off the bat. And I think that brings down so many walls that people build in society for all these other reasons, that comfort and that familiarity of, like, I understand them, they understand me, just allows so many other barriers to get taken down by individuals.
The automatic click. I
Yeah.
mean, you look
Yeah.
them in the eye and you know that they're battling a very similar battle. They say it's like they're battling, it's different because it's different per person, but we're using the same tools.
Yeah.
The therapy method's different. We're all using insulin at the moment, mostly. Besides the trials that but we're using insulin, we're using technology to measure our blood glucose, and it just like we battle the same effects, even if food affects us slightly differently. It's the same overall. Let's just say, call it for what it is, a roller coaster of trying to manage something that's very unmanageable.
Yeah, and, like, if you go around and you were to tell somebody, "Hold on, my blood sugar is 65, but I just ate 32 grams of carbohydrates and I'm still trending down, so I need to have about 3 glucose tabs and sit down for 10 minutes to see if my blood sugar is gonna plane out before the rise comes." Everyone's gonna look at you like you're a mad scientist,
Yeah.
like you're
Yeah.
crazy, but if I were to sit with another type 1 and say that, they'll be like, "Bro, I got you."
Just right in my mind, I
Yeah.
was just thinking of what I was doing in that same situation. Be like, "Nah, he needs 15 minutes. Let's give him an extra 5 minutes, and then he'll get up. But then we got to start moving before the spike hits,
Yeah.
and we got to get
You
ahead of the
get it,
spike."
like, you're just
Yeah,
on that wavelength.
yeah,
You're on
yeah.
that wavelength.
It's the fact that type ones have to make those many decisions. It really turns us. I mean, and that's what we're trying to flip on the head here. Is that there are aspects of just having this condition that can be turned into assets. That can be what I like to call superpowers, you
Yeah.
know? Like
Yep.
flip it on its head, call it for what it is. The fact we have to make so many decisions probably means we can be more proficient in other realms of life. If we take what we learn with type 1 management, if we have to make all of those decisions, we're going to be, more slightly burnt out, but our brain is going to be used to making those kind of decisions. And if you use that mentality, what decisions can you also make to benefit your career, your relationships, your spirituality, the overall arch of life?
Yeah, yeah, as a type 1, we have to look at so much more than just what's right in front of us, and, the more you do that, like Joe was just talking about, the more that mindset and that perspective trickles into the other areas of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's just really about being empowering. And I won't go too much into it, but you know me, is like, I personally get frustrated when I see something out there that is over encompassingly too negative about type 1. It's because we face that all the time. We want to start creating stuff that shows what's possible with type 1 as opposed to saying what's not possible with type 1.
Yeah, what's possible, and I'd also add to that on real.
Yeah.
We're not just
Yep.
gonna we don't wanna just show the highs of highs or the negative stigmas that you see out there around
Yeah.
type 1. We wanna show you the full, authentic, this is what it's like to be a type 1. We
Mhm.
have these moments that are great. We have these moments that are not so great. This is how we got through them. This is what we did. hopefully this can help you, but we are real people too. We're not preaching off a pedestal. We are just telling you what worked for us in this moment and not hiding the moment from you to give you that $1 million summit picture or that poor woe is me. I can't do this because of X, Y, or Z.
And bringing it back to the concept of just the type 1 community and how we're so distinct and we can just recognize each other. What do you think about like the fact that if we do a hike as a group, how that translate, like, because all of us are going to be affected differently, but for the fact that we're going through still, it's different but similar. You know what I mean? It's like, how can one learn when being in a group setting during an activity?
I think a group of type 1 diabetics doing something physically demanding is one of the best environments that you could put yourself in as a type 1 diabetic, because I've done it this way my whole life, but Joe's done it this way. Tom has done it this way. Julie's done it this way. I can sit here and look at the full spectrum of participants on this hike and see everything that they do and talk to them about why it works for them. Something that one of them does may be something that could truly benefit me, but I've never stepped back and either researched it, seen it, or used it. And if it wasn't for that type 1 group, that type 1 community doing something together and being open and being honest and real with each other and talking about what we do, why we do it, what we struggle with, what works for us, I would never see those other things that could help me have better control of my type 1 diabetes.
And that goes back to just having relationship and friendship. I mean, I think the fact that so our audience knows today's the first day that we've ever met in person, but
Yeah.
we've known each other and have talked almost every single day for like a year,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
it's kind of, it's like, that's the power of type 1 diabetes. That's the power of an online community. I do think both online and in person are extremely important. But that's just the power of having type 1 is the fact that we can create a friendship over a medium like the internet or text messaging or FaceTime and phone calling.
Yeah, exactly. And it allows you to not feel so isolated.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there who feel like they're alone dealing with type 1, but you have different Facebook communities, social media communities, you have a lot of groups that meet up, you have events in different regions all across the country. Like there's so many ways to be connected with the type 1 community, and just something as small as a text message goes a long way when it comes from getting you out of that negative mindset.
Yeah, and if you feel like, and I'm gonna say this, and I will always advocate this, if you feel like there's one of those groups that you just explained that is out there and you still don't have a part in it, or you're saying that nobody's listening to you, reach out to us. We're not preaching. We'll listen. If it's something that you feel like you've only been through, and that's okay that you've only been through it, we're here to listen. We're here to be with you. And I think that's the whole concept of the type 1 is not to say, oh, I messed up. I'm at 30. And it's like, well, why are you at 30? You shouldn't have been that. It's kind of saying, I understand.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, 100%. And the communities are so vast. Me and Joe are both lucky enough to have a pretty wide network of type 1s. Even if you're halfway across the world, I'm sure there's somebody we could help connect you with that either understands the situation you may be in or someone who's closer to you if you need that in-person feel of another type 1 diabetic.
Yeah. I mean, I think that both of us were, especially speaking for me, we were scared kids at at one point. And I say scared kid, I was diagnosed at 21, a little later than being a kid. No matter what age you're diagnosed at, there's parts where we are fearful of a lot of things. I was actually just watching the new season of Chris Hemsworth his Limitless show. I just watched. If you've seen it, don't spoil it for me. I just watched episode 1 so far. But he was playing the drums in front of 70,000 people at a Ed Sheeran show, and he just learned how to play the drums 2 months before. And it got into all the science about how learning something is beneficial, but then how facing a fear, you know, And I equate that to like the first time that I tried to hike with diabetes. It was very fearful, but it's actually very good for my mental and physical body. It was good for my brain. It was good for what would then progress to learning how to manage type 1 to face that fear. In the pipeline with the community that you and I are building, we are trying to create expeditions that are create a lot like I mean, people might look at it and be extremely fearful. I'm trying to do this with myself too during this whole process is to put myself out of my element. How important do you think it is, one, to face fears, but two, to get type 1 diabetics in places where like you think that you wouldn't be able to survive in the backcountry because of the insulin you have to carry, but it's like kind of placing ourselves out of our initial elements rather than being surrounded by pharmacies and whatnot, but still being safe.
So I think it's twofold to
Yeah.
that. So by taking type ones and putting them in challenging situations, and providing a experience where they feel seen, heard, safe, and challenged, not only will do wonders for them in the moment, but I feel like these expeditions are going to be the jump off point for massive change in their life. The aim is to have the individuals on these trip leave with that confidence and that independence and that kind of aha moment like, why was I ever afraid of doing X,
Yeah.
Y, or Z?
Yeah.
If I can do this with 10 other people who live with type 1 and we all not only made it through safely, but thoroughly enjoyed the experience, why have I ever let type 1 stop me from doing anything else in the past? They're gonna leave with that, and then I also feel like that community aspect of it for people who may be a little bit more along with their management, not beginner level, I feel like that community aspect of it brings a completely different experience where now everyone's type 1. You're not the only type 1 in a group. You're not a type 1 solo hiking. You're in with a tight-knit family who understand each other, and that's why I keep referring to it as a family because I just feel every time I meet a type 1, there's that automatic connection.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I had articulated to Joe in the beginning is, we're not curating trips to lead trips. We're facilitating an experience where we get type 1s to the trailhead, and then the magic happens on the trail when 6, 8, 10, 12 type 1s are together for 2, 3, 4 days, 30, 40, 50 miles. That is where the magic of this is all going to happen.
And before we dive into how has started and how this has started and exactly what we're going to do, a little more details on that. There have been a lot of, and I don't want to not reach out to pediatrics and kids living with type 1 diabetes, but there have been a lot of camps. There's been a lot of counseling. There's been a lot of resources, I think is the word that I'm trying to find for kids growing up with type 1 diabetes. I think it's amazing. Um, but a lot of it almost, I don't want to say the word stops, but it reduces and it dwindles when you gear into adulthood. Um, I've only known type 1 diabetes as an adult, but I can tell you that it's been extremely hard to find adult groups with type 1 diabetes who are at the same wavelength of what it is for like a type 1 camp growing up as a kid. Um, do you want to like what are your thoughts on having it be adult specific just for the fact that we don't there's a lack of adult specific options for us to get together.
Yeah, and I feel like so we're not saying there's not any adult specific stuff out there. There's plenty out there, but there's not a lot when it comes to adventure and challenge.
Mhm.
When Joe was talking about the camps and the stuff for younger kids, when I was younger, I went to a camp in northern New Jersey, Camp Najeda. It was great. It was a 2-week experience. I was surrounded with other type 1 kids, a lot of which who are still friends and we still keep in touch up to this day, but it was a complete disconnect from the reality of dealing with type 1, where I was just submerged in a community where everyone had the same thing. We did all kinds of physical activities, sports, trips, all this great stuff. And as a kid, I looked forward to that every single year. But once I went through as a camper, I went through as a counselor, but I hit a point where like I had to grow up and get a real job. I couldn't stay doing that my whole life. And I feel like there was just a lot that I wish I could have done, that I wish was there, that wasn't there. You have a lot of organizations out there that do like dinners. They'll host conferences with speakers. You'll have events. You'll have pop-up groups all over the place.
Mhm.
You have a couple like specific type groups where you have sports related groups of type 1 diabetics do some things.
Yeah, and even
But
online groups.
yeah, but it's like few and far between,
Yeah.
and the whole idea of building this adult adventure type group is like, for me, just because I got older doesn't mean that the thirst for adventure ever stopped,
No,
and
no, and the danger was that, at least for me, I was doing it by myself, and then I kept on getting into more and more dangerous until I learned, like we were talking about
yeah,
before, both with type 1 diabetes and not. Like, man, I was traveling into very dangerous winter situations. If you listen to my -40 Mount Washington solo, that wasn't I wouldn't do that again confronting those conditions. I'm glad I did it. I learned a lot. I got a lot of confidence from that. But if I at least had another person
yeah.
with me, it creates a safety net and a buffer.
Yeah. Yep. So that's like we're building something that I wish was there when I was going through that stage. Now, I'm still in that stage, just a
Yep.
different stage. But now, type 1 diabetes is starting to show up much later in life for people. When I was diagnosed, it was referred to as juvenile because it was very, very rare that anyone past the middle teens was diagnosed with type 1. That's not the case anymore. So there's so many people in their late teens, their 20s, their 30s, even into their 40s who are finding themselves with their worlds turned upside down because they are now type 1 diabetic and they don't have any prior knowledge. They don't have any experience growing up with it. They're
Mhm.
just thrown into this life altering situation where they don't really know how to deal with it, what they can and can't do. And at that point in life, there's so many other responsibilities on your plate, that pushing the limits in adventure kind of falls back. But we are trying to not only put that back to the forefront, we are trying to show you that it doesn't matter that you're type 1. You can still do this, and we're providing the atmosphere. We're like, it's okay. Come with us. We'll show you. We'll do it
Mhm.
with you. We all have the same thing that you do.
So for that young type 1 going through the camps, this is a call to come back. And
Yeah.
for the newly diagnosed, it's a call to return to what was once possibly normal for them, or to try something new, or just to feel like they could go through what that
Yeah,
young
and
kid.
especially that demographic,
Yeah.
like, I was diagnosed at 12 and my world got turned upside down. I can't even imagine what it's like to be 30, 35, 45 years old with a family and a full career and
And
have your
just
life turned
having
upside
lived
down.
40 years. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm not even 30 yet, and I can't imagine having lived that long of having a life experience, and now you're with a condition that cannot be reversed. And at the moment, it was we don't know, there was nothing you could do about it, and now you have to live. And it's like the great part about it is you can live a healthy life going forward.
yep,
But it goes back to the education, as you can only live a healthy life if you treat and manage it properly with the like your education and knowledge that you learn and grow.
yeah, exactly, and by providing a space, a community, a
Mhm.
group, challenges, by encompassing all of that into an educational sense, a motivational sense, an inspirational sense, we're able to show them that it's not a death sentence. You can still live happy, joyous, and free. You can still do anything you wanted to do. And if we can be that jump off, that kickstart for these people to like step back and be like, you're right, I can do this. That's everything that we've set out to do.
Now, I want to preface before we get into this next chapter of the conversation, preface this to the audience that we are talking about what we are building. Um, yes, we're talking about it because we're excited for it. This we want people to know about it. So this is not a direct advertisement of like, come join us, but this is something that it's news that we're excited about. So we want to make it out. We want to put it out there. We want to make it aware that it's happening, and we want people to I think everybody's going to get excited about it. We want people to get excited about it just as much as we're excited about it. So when we start talking about this, really is out of pure excitement as opposed to as opposed to advertising, you know.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I just wanted to have that quick disclaimer in there. After we last spoke on the pod, there was kind of like a light bulb moment for both of us, for you and I. Um, what came to your mind at first within those preceding months, let's call it? Because I mean, you're training for more marathons, but we had a conversation and both of us kind of knew something was there. There was an idea bigger than us kind of forming.
Yeah. Yeah. So after we recorded the podcast, me and Joe stayed on after the recording and we're just kind of talking a bit, and we were talking about the different things that we were building, him with T1 Determined and me with the idea of Project Insulnation. And we were just kind of throwing ideas back and forth on like what we were aspiring our ventures to be. And it was a really powerful conversation because I honestly felt like I was talking to a different version of myself. You know, our whys were aligned, our values were aligned, and our visions were aligned. And we both kind of left that conversation with like there might be something here, you know, and we kept in touch. And we started talking about big like passion projects like down the road. But shortly after that, I ended up launching Project Insulnation, which is a type 1 diabetes adventure business, is
Mhm.
I guess the best way I can articulate it. But you know, I curate trips to take type 1 diabetics out into these challenging situations in the wild, surrounded by people who understand them, whether they're type 1s, they're medical professionals in the type 1 field. Everyone around these trips has to be well versed in type 1 diabetes, because the entire purpose of it is to make you feel comfortable, to make you feel confident, to leave with a sense of independence and
Mhm.
growth. You know, and I launched it. You know, we advertised the first trip. We filled up pretty quick. We had a lot of interest. You know, and I kind of realized that there might be something here. You know, there's a niche of people, specific age groups, where there's just this hasn't been offered before. And after I kind of got into it and the ball started rolling a bit, you know, I kept going back to my conversation with Joe, with his T1 Determined, and you know, it was pretty apparent to me that Joe was someone that I needed to get involved with this, because Joe with the media and film and the T1 Determined and everything he does with that, and me getting all of these people together to do these longer endurance hiking backpacking events, there was just a natural alignment between me and Joe. So I initially reached out to Joe asking for Joe to be a co-host on two of my upcoming trips to gauge his interest, to see if he'd be interested in helping me run this. And I'll turn it over to Joe and let him tell his side now.
Yeah, yeah, no, thank you very much for explaining that. And as this continued to grow and the idea started to form, I saw this. I mean, we've always been aligned, but I really saw it as an opportunity. Looked at the people that have signed up. I looked at what the ideas of the trips were. I mean, the Pemi Loop multi-night trip, Grand Tetons multi-day, multi-night, overnight camping trip. And I just thought groups of type 1 diabetics getting together as a filmmaker, as a podcaster, as a documenter, I'm like, how many stories are here
Yeah.
to find? I started T1 Determined to try to find these kinds of stories. to delve into on podcast conversations to find out how people are managing type 1 diabetes and endurance sports, feats, adventures. And that that's the essence of it is because I want to learn. It's a little bit selfish, but it's a little bit not. It's like I want people to learn with me. And when what you started doing at Project Insulnation, I was like, there could be documentaries on this. There could be fireside podcasts on this. I mean, I know we're filming on an iPhone now because my $5,000 camera that I lugged with me got too cold because it's actually 30 degrees out. So we're learning to keep those warm. But the fact that we could bring high quality content of the average type 1. We're not saying that this person is an expert in type 1, but hey, they're coming on a Loop trip. Let's talk to them about their life, no matter what age you're at. If you're Tommy, you're a little older. If you're me, you're a little younger. And it's just like we can delve into the stories of these experiences and provide more education. It's another avenue for education to get out there for type 1s to use that information and apply it and adapt it to how they live their life. Number 2, in the mountains, you got me in. I mean, like, I want to be in the mountains. I want to be with people in the mountains. I want to be a mountain guide. And aside from that, I think just the mission itself is so important because I love the mountains so much. I know what the mountains have to offer. Mountains and nature. We should say that kind of conjoined and together. There is so much to learn about life within the mountains and bringing people into those situations, into nature to be able to learn about other aspects, like I was saying before, outside of type 1 diabetes. To me, that's invaluable. I think everybody should be learning. I mean, if you're going camping, setting up a campsite in a certain way, staying organized from start to finish, the kind of foods that you bring, like these are all things. If it rains, you got to get your equipment ready, or even the pace on trail, especially with a group. These are all lessons that you can take back to a corporate job. These are all lessons you could take back to a family and a relationship with your wife and your kids, And I just think it's very important to get people involved with type 1 diabetes in a setting that they may not be as used to, in a setting with other type 1s who get it, and just in a place where you can get beautiful views like this. I mean, it really is like an endless opportunity. There's so much to cherish about it. We're calling like this region, the Northeast region, like our home base, because there's so much to cherish about these mountains. There's so much to cherish about the Rocky Mountains, the Grand Tetons, and there's so much to cherish about our overall big goals, going to the Patagonia, going to the Himalaya, Alaska range. It's like getting type 1s there. We want to be the bridge to help people get there. And being part of that bridge, I just think it's important. I'm excited to be part of something that I think is important, but I really do think, and at the end of the day, if somebody doesn't, if their interest isn't aligned with going to a place like this, then they can watch a documentary or listen to a podcast. And even though without going to that place, they can see what it was like and they can learn what we learned as a group together about type 1 diabetes, and say your interest is about like basketball and it's not about mountains, but you can still watch a documentary about us in the Tetons and what we've learned, and one piece of information you can then apply that to your basketball routines.
Yep. And when you put 12 different diabetics together in one setting, you have 12 different life experiences. Not only on type 1, but you have all walks of life coming in who can teach you so many different things about all the facets of life.
Yep, from different walks of life, different socioeconomic statuses, different ages, different religions. It's just like it's bringing, because we're so much more. I think the theme of today is like we're so much more than our type 1, but that shouldn't stop us from focusing on our type 1 so much.
Yeah, exactly. And that's bringing Joe in not only allows us to get the type 1 vision and mission out there to everyone and inspire people across the globe, but it allows every one of our participants to tell their story.
Yep. And we're hoping to grow. and hopefully, we're starting now, but the hope is to grow to a team. So we have a team of storytellers different regions, locations, expedition sizes. So talk to us now about what that looks like. I mean, because obviously we're very creative people. We have big minds. We have a whole 10-year plan. But what does this year? What is upcoming? Let's start with the first two expeditions.
So this year, last weekend in May, we're going to the Pemigewasset Loop in the White Mountains. There are 9 of us type 1 diabetics going. We're doing a 2, possibly 3 night. I say possibly because we're aiming for 2 days, but we all
Depends on
know,
weather, everything.
nature is nature, and she
Variable.
will win. So 2 to 3 nights up in the Pemigewasset Loop. This is our first trip. I'm really excited for it. We have a great group of type 1s coming together from all across the country. When I opened this, I was beyond happy and beyond surprised when I had people from the Northwest. I had people from down south. I had people from the Carolinas all jump on board. It was a really special moment for me to be able to get a wide range of people
Yeah.
for the first ever
Because
Insulnation
I
trip.
think it's because your mission resonates so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, and I mean, the mission is clear as day. It's just to inspire, encourage, and empower type 1s to break free from limiting beliefs that type 1 is a crutch and honestly it could be anything they want it to be,
Yeah.
but to not let it hold you back. Um, I'm very excited for the trip because it's going to be the first time we get a group of type 1s together on a trail. But B, it's gonna teach me and you a lot of
A
what
lot.
we should not do, what we should do the next time, and what worked really well the first time.
Hopefully not breaking any more phones.
It's gonna be a great learning experience for us because we want to provide the best experience for anyone coming on these trips all the way through. Um, and then we just recently launched in the fall. We haven't solidified dates yet, but we're looking in the middle of August. We're looking at a 5-day backpack through the Grand Tetons out in Teton National Park. We're opening up 10 slots for that. So applications are open. We'll tag the applications on the podcast at the end if you're interested.
Yep.
But that's going to be our first real big trip going out to the Tetons. We stayed local for the first one just because we didn't know how the marketing and the turnout and the response would be, but it was very strong. So now we're branching out. I had a lot of people for the Pemi Loop messaged me, reached out to me and said, if you ever come out west, let us know. So if you were one of those people, we're coming out west. I hope to see you there. And then moving forward, like 2027, we were talking before, we'd like to keep the Northeast as kind of our home base where we could run a couple weekend trips throughout the year to either the Catskills, the Adirondacks, the White Mountains. But we'd like to get to the point, 2027 will probably be 2 bigger flagship trips, whether it's the Rockies or like the North Cascades, something bigger, something bolder. But we want to grow this to the point where we're having, I'd say, 4 to 6 weekend trips and then 4 or 5 bigger flagship trips every year. And then as we continue to grow in this, we're going to open up different tiers. We're going to open up beginner level trips, intermediate level trips, which is kind of what we're doing now, and we're going to open it to expert level trips. The beginner level trips are going to be, more for late teens, early adults, possibly even room for caretakers if the type 1 is now leaving the nest and going to, say, go to college or they're moving out on their own. It's to teach the type 1 the independence and responsibility, but it's also to teach the caretaker that you have to let the type 1 leave the nest. They have to learn how to take care of themselves. These beginner level trips are going to be more of a 1 to 2 day, 1 overnight, maybe 2 full days of hiking, 20 to 30 miles, not as physically demanding as the intermediate trips, but more, it's still going to be challenging, but it's going to be more of an educational, inspiring trip.
Yeah.
We plan on having medical professionals come with us on these, whether they're endocrinologists, cardiologists, any other profession that has anything to do with type 1 diabetes. We'd like to bring some of these professionals on to give campfire talks at night, to just give talks about their level and field of expertise to help these individuals either let their type 1s leave the nest, or the type 1s gaining the confidence and the independence to leave the nest.
Yep.
Intermediate trips are what we're doing now, kind of. You've got some outdoor experience, you've got some management experience where you kind of know how to handle yourself in type 1 situations out in these elements. But as we always allude to, there's always room to learn. And then we plan on growing to expert level trips, where I'll let you talk about this one because I know how much this one means to you.
This is the big one of where I think about a documentary film, and I think about how many cool type 1 athletes are doing cool things out there. But there has yet to be a lot of Netflix level, I'll call it, or Amazon Prime level, or any high-end level, Paramount Plus level, like just streaming level, movie theater level, high quality filmmaking about type 1 specifically doing endurance sports and endurance events. So to me, this excites me to kind of create a vision of what a documentary would be like of an all type 1 expedition on an acclaimed peak like Denali, we'll use for example. I know the huge dream is to go to the Himalayas one day and to do stuff that's never been done before. And I think we're not trying to say that type 1s have not climbed Denali, because there have been plenty of type 1s to climb Denali. It has not been documented as much in a professional high quality format, nor has there been a full blown type 1 expedition.
Yeah.
So this mission is definitely twofold, where it's like we want to capture it. We want to show people, even from the smaller ones, what type 1s are doing, but also we want to get and organize. I'm a huge expedition style person. I love it. Like the old book, like Annapurna is one of my favorite books by Maurice Herzog. And it's just like, I love being on an expedition. The camaraderie of it reminds me, like a mountaineering camaraderie, reminds me a lot of what we're trying to do with creating type 1 camaraderie. And just getting a whole type 1 group together in an environment that I call uncontrollable as something as large, serious, and big as Denali, because that is no small feat. Getting one person to Denali is a huge success. Getting a whole team of type 1 diabetics to Denali is something that has not been done before in an expedition style format with multiple type 1s. I think the largest group has been 2 or 3 type 1 diabetics, but I envision, and this can stretch as far as the Himalayas, to do first type 1 diabetic peaks down in the Patagonia. It really is it starts like right here, right now, and then it can grow to something that's really impactful. I mean, if you even we won't get into this discussion today, but this kind of stuff goes beyond type 1 to where you're teaching the world how to manage a chronic illness. The inspiration, the motivation, the education will change lives of type 1s, but it goes beyond type 1s as well, where it can affect people's lives who live with type 1s, who live with chronic conditions, who are even just not in the shape they want to be in life and want to walk down the street or go for a walk in the local park.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like you were just saying, someone with a different chronic illness sees an all type 1 team summiting Denali, and they ask the question, well, why can't my group do this? And then next thing you know, that
That's
group is
exactly what we
going to
want
do
to
it.
see.
Yeah.
Even if
Yep.
we're not like, our point's not to be involved with everything. Like our
Yeah,
point is
no.
just to see it grow.
We want to see people overcome the stigmas and limiting beliefs around any chronic illness.
Yeah.
Everyone can live a happy, free life. It just takes a little more preparation and planning when you have a chronic illness.
What are you most excited for about this endeavor? Because I think just much like type 1, it's not going to be easy, and you're going to learn a whole lot.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see where this goes. I started this mission to make a difference. And I feel like as word's getting out there more and more people are starting to hear about what we're doing, that momentum is starting to build. and gaining that momentum is going to give us the voice to make the difference that we set out to make. At the end of the day, if we do all of this and we only help one person, that's a win in my book. We
Yeah.
still helped one person overcome those limiting beliefs. If we turn into a global movement who helps millions long after we're gone, awesome. We completed our mission of helping people break free of these limiting beliefs. I ultimately want this to be a movement, not a business.
Well, I can tell you right off the bat, you've already succeeded in some realm because today it means something special. I say the story all the time of being that scared kid in the hospital who just got the article about the type 1 who made it to the top of Everest. Years later now, if I could go back to that scared kid and be like, look where you're sitting right now, it was very special hiking with another type 1 today.
Yeah.
So you've already affected me because I mean, I hike with type 1s and I have a lot of type 1 friends, but it's not often. A lot of the type 1 friends are spread across the country,
Yeah.
So sometimes I don't get to see them for a couple months. So when the moment happens where we are both type 1 and we are together and we are doing something, even as simple as a nice day hike, it means something to that scared kid in the hospital that's still really hidden inside me, as I'm sure it does to you, who was the 12-year-old who went through a very similar situation, as I'm sure and I hope it resonates with our listeners who are type 1s, either diagnosed at 40 or in the 20s or young kids. And it just like, it does something to you being that kid who was told their life is going to change. And you could be that kid at 40.
Yeah.
Like there's still like I honestly think when you're being told you have this condition, you resort back to being a kid inside. And there's that piece of you that will always live with fear. And today squash that.
Yeah. Yep. That's the whole aim of what we're doing. We want to crush those limiting beliefs. We want to see you happy. We want to see you challenging yourself. We want to see you saying yes to things that you 6 months ago may have said no to because of whatever reason it is that's stopping you from doing it. We want you to continue to grow as a person across the board, and we want you to take diabetes along for the ride, but not let it drive the car.
Well, I can say from a mountain guiding perspective and from a filmmaking and storytelling perspective, I am sure excited. Um, how can people start to get involved with this? I know it's very early in the startup phase, but we already have 2 groups, 2 trips happening this year, and we're hoping to expand to more this year and next year. How can people learn more about this as we continue to grow? And how can people sign up, especially if they're interested in the Grand Tetons trip happening this August?
So you can visit our webpage. It's www.projectinsulnation, insulnation.com. It's insulin and nation kind of tied together. The trip details are up there. There's a link to the application up there. You can follow both me or Joe on social media. We put a lot of stuff out together. We have the applications linked in our bios. We're constantly putting on updates and content around type 1 and stuff related to what we're doing. And if you want to get involved, feel free to reach out to any of us and ask if there's any way that you can help or let us know in any way that you want to help. We're here to make a difference in the lives of type 1. If there's anyone who that mission aligns with who wants to be a part of it, we'll welcome you with open arms.
For sure, it starts with 1, it grows to 2, but it doesn't stop there
Nope.
because we can't have it stop there.
No.
This
Nope.
the whole idea is for it to be a movement, and it needs to have a boatload, a whole community. Let's say.
Yep. Yep. And right now the biggest thing you can do to help us grow is to like, comment, and share on any of the
Yeah,
social media posts that resonate with you.
yeah.
Help us
That is
get the
a
word out to
zero
the
cost
bigger.
method,
Yep.
as
Yep.
we'd like to say.
Yep. The more eyes that see our content, the more lives we can touch.
The more eyes, the more lives. I like that, and we shall end with that. So,
Yeah.
Chris, I want to first off thank you for coming on as the second timer. We
And
will
and the first live outdoorser.
live outdoors. Unfortunately, we're not streaming.
Yeah.
And Second, I'd like to say thank you once again for a second time sharing all of your expertise and sharing your excitement. It is amazing, but definitely gonna have you on a third, fourth, fifth, sixth. You can be a regular. You have the official invite. Um, Thank you so much. I will keep the audience up to date with what we're doing because we plan to continue to release the style of podcasts that we are releasing. But we're starting to evolve to hopefully create more podcasts that are out in the field, that are out in studios. I just think there's something so important and so unique about having an in-person conversation. While I love our online conversations, I will always try to strive for in-person because just like, I mean, when you look somebody eye to eye, there is that element that allows you to go down the conversation rabbit hole as we did today. And I'm sure we could endlessly talk for hours and hours, which I'm sure we will. So overall, I'll cut it short now, my long rant, by just saying thank you so much for joining me today.
I love it. Thanks for having me on here.
Thank you, Chris, for sharing the same passion as me. At the end of the day, we truly want to make a positive impact in this world. What better way to accomplish this mission than gathering T1Ds and going on adventures together? You can learn more about our upcoming Project Insulnation trips, including the Tetons this August, at projectinsulnation.com and t1determined.net. We've included the application in the show note captions. You can also follow at project_insulnation and at T1D_endurance for constant updates about this initiative as a whole. Via email or social media, if you are interested, please reach out. Our contact information and social media are also in the show note captions. For all our content, please visit t1determined.net. Connect with us on social media. Find us on Instagram, TikTok, and X at T1D_endurance and Facebook at T1determined. Until next time, keep pushing your limits. I hope this helps. Stay strong, stay determined. T1 Determined.